3 large sides is only $15.99. It's Brown's Value Plus Family Dinner.
Wow! My favorite thing? The chicken is good.
That's the thing about Brown's.
It tastes better.
He said, have sex with me. Not would you or could you. You have to have sex with me.
Tonight, the charges and the investigation that's already prompted action at police headquarters.
We've got fog, we've got freezing rain, and we've got the makings of a mess in the morning.
And then there were 15. The Castaways, the cultural phenomenon, Survivor is back.
This is the 10 o'clock news on CBS 2 Chicago.
Good evening, everyone. He's a Chicago cop who may have used his badge to get sex.
The charge comes tonight from 3 different women who told their story to one reporter, Pam Zeckman.
David Tracy, the story these women tell are backed up, in part, by court records. All were arrested in an apparent sting on escort services. Later, they say, one of the cops gave them a choice: have sex with him or go to jail. A provocative dance, private parties and escort services advertising their services for a fee, some crossing the line into prostitution. It's a seedy world targeted for periodic crackdowns by the police. But now a cop assigned to one of those crackdowns is accused of using his position for his own sexual gratification. Allegations made by these 3 women.
He used his badge in order to intimidate us and to terrorize us.
He wants to use his position of power to get him sex.
I was his sex slave literally for the night.
You were what?
A sex slave.
They're talking about a policeman at the 18th District here on the North Side, Eugene Jennings, who apparently set up a sting by calling several escort services that advertise in this guide. The 5 women who showed up at this motel on Saturday, January 6th, were all arrested. Their court files show that Jennings said they all agreed to perform acts of sex for money. But Nicole Tate says she's an exotic dancer who agreed only to do a show for $150.
The sum total that I was going to be paid for was dancing.
No prostitution.
No prostitution.
And Robin Lance on the left says on that night she only drove her associate, Olivia, to the motel. But they say the officer insisted that they could all be charged with soliciting for prostitution.
And he kept saying that he controlled everything, that he had the power to turn our charges from misdemeanors to felonies.
Then the women say that Officer Jennings interviewed each of them alone in a room here at the police station. That's when they say the police officer did things and said things to let them know he'd go easier on them if they had sex with him. Robin refused.
Well, in my opinion, he was going to use us as toys, like play toys, and I'm no one's play toy.
Neither was Nicole.
I wasn't going to give him sex or let him see my body and degrade me more than I'd already been degraded.
Nicole and Robin believe that because they turned the officer down, they were transferred to central booking and locked up for 13 hours.
From roughly 11 p.m. Saturday night until 12 p.m. Sunday afternoon.
But court records show that Olivia and another woman were released at 10 the night before from the 18th District. Released, says 19-year-old Olivia, because they agreed to Jennings' demands.
He said, have sex with me.
Have sex?
Not would you or could you. You have to have sex with me in order to get out of jail.
Were you scared?
I was devastated, petrified.
She says they spent the night in a room in this hotel with Officer Jennings.
We had just sex. Just sex, non-stop sex.
Interrupted briefly when the officer went out for food and liquor. Why didn't you leave?
Because my paperwork wasn't finished. No, it was hers. No telling what he would do.
What he apparently did with their paperwork was to cross out the criminal statute for soliciting prostitution and replace it with a less serious violation of a city ordinance prohibiting a tavern employee from soliciting patrons to buy drinks for them, a change I asked one of their attorneys about. It has nothing to do with what happened that night.
Yes. And he followed through to the letter. He made it easy for these girls who did what he wanted to get off.
He has this prediction.
The practical sense is just going to cause the case to get thrown out of court.
The other girls still face the more serious charges that their attorneys will defend in court.
What this officer did was wrong. It was a violation of their fundamental civil rights. And it must be, it's got to be stopped.
He has been stopped for now. Police internal affairs investigators have found the women's charges credible enough to recommend temporary action be taken against Jennings.
This officer has been stripped of his police powers.
What does it mean for the public?
It means that his badge has been taken away, as well as his weapon and other police tools, and he is relegated largely to desk duty.
If formal charges are brought before the police board, Jennings could be suspended or fired. Jennings declined to be interviewed on camera, saying only in a telephone interview that the charges are not true. Tracy, David?
Thank you, Pam.
Weather is making news tonight. We have had rain, freezing rain, and some snow, and it could all make for a messy commute tomorrow morning. More than 500 salt trucks.
He has not tried to influence. You closed the 18 locations at the social club operation that could impact the future of the Operation Safe Road.
No, thank you. A Chicago policeman is being accused tonight of trading sex for reduced criminal charges, and at least 2 women say they accepted the offer. The women say it happened at a police station on the near north side. Arlene Chacon joins us from there now with the story.
Walter, the police officer, was assigned to the East Chicago Avenue police station, and he was allegedly running a sting operation designed to catch and convict prostitutes. But authorities aren't sure that his sting operation was legitimate, and at least 5 women are now claiming that they were made an offer by this police officer. They could either spend the night in jail or spend the night with him. The officer and his partner set up in a room at a near North Side hotel. On the afternoon of Saturday, January 6th, they dialed up several exotic dancers and escort services, and 5 girls responded. One by one, they were handcuffed and taken to central booking, and one by one, they claimed the officer tried to cut a deal with them.
Basically, if they agreed to have sex with him, they would receive a lesser charge that would not require them to spend the night in jail.
Nicole Tate says she works as a dancer and a part-time model, but she says she's no hooker, and neither are the others. The women range in age from 19 to 39. None have records for sex crimes. 3 of the girls refused, and they were locked up overnight. But the other 2 say the officer threatened everything from a felony conviction to loss of child custody, and they agreed to have sex. They had their charges changed and then went to another hotel to pay up their end of the bargain with the officer.
I believe he definitely thought that he would get away with this. He didn't know that we all knew each other.
When the women compared notes the next day, they were outraged and say they tried to file a complaint with police internal affairs, but none of them ever got a response.
They were not being responsive to these women's outcries.
Not until the story made headlines did the brass respond. Police Superintendent Terry Hillard says some cops make legitimate mistakes, but not when it means abusing power and the public trust.
And we're going to come after you. Simple as that. There's no place on this police department for behavior such as that.
Now the women are convinced they aren't the only ones victimized by this particular officer.
I definitely believe he's done this before.
Normal day.
He will file suit in the morning, and he will be suing the officer, the police department, and the city of Chicago. In the meantime, the officer in question has had to turn in his gun and has been reassigned to desk duty. His partner is also under investigation for failing to take appropriate action. Live here on the near North Side, Lilia Chacon, Fox News, Chicago.
Lilia, have the police said anything about their response to the initial complaints filed by the women, or their lack of response?
No, they didn't even get to file an initial complaint. The Internal Affairs Department apparently didn't respond to them in any way. At least that's what the women are saying. Obviously, that investigation is now underway.
All right, thanks, Lilia. And Chicago police are now looking for a man from Iowa in connection with a deadly hit and
that may have caused him to perhaps lose control of that vehicle. We did send out a toxicology specimens on him, and those results are pending.
Witnesses say the van didn't strike.
Spiritual advice from Jan Lavanzan. She's here to talk about her new book.
Please collect answers viewer letters, and we're going to furniture making school.
Tired of wasting money at the cosmetics counter? We're checking out a makeup resource Bible tomorrow from 6 to 9.
Winter delights in Chicago. Hotel rooms start at $79 climbed into Shannon Gardner's car, then simply left the scene.
I just wish he knew. Mara.
My heart is sad, but my conscience is very clear.
Governor Ryan responds after the parents of 6 children killed in a car crash call for him to resign. And what's happened to all those workers who lost their jobs when the dot-com boom went bust?
This is the
71%
on CBS 2 Chicago.
Good evening, I'm Tracy Townsend.
And I'm David Curley. He is embarrassed and angry. And tonight, Chicago's top cop, Terry Hillard, says he is going to take action over the sex scandal in his department. Hillard's reaction comes on the heels of a CBS 2 investigation. Last night, you heard from 3 women who say an officer arrested them, then offered to go easy on them in exchange for sex. Pam Zeckman broke this story. She's back now tonight with more. Pam?
David and Tracy, the women and their attorneys say this scandal isn't about just one officer. They say his partners and supervisors should be investigated, too. If they didn't know what was going on, they should have.
There's no place on this police department for behavior such as that.
And that's why Police Superintendent Terry Hillard said today that as a result of our referring these women to Police Internal Affairs, he's stripped police powers away from Officer Eugene Jennings. Powers Jennings apparently abused when he wrote these reports, charging the women with soliciting for prostitution.
He said that he was Stephen King with a pen when it came to writing police reports.
Stephen King, the fiction writer.
That meant that basically he could do what he wanted to do.
What does he want in this case?
He wanted sex. Basically, plain and simple.
The women say Jennings let them know what he wanted when he called them one by one into an office at the 18th District Police Station and made some not-so-subtle advances.
He used to scrap my leg like this and ran his hand up it. That was letting me know that he was propositioning me.
Robin says she rebuffed Jennings' request that she meet him in a hotel to discuss the charges. Nicole
Medium.
her to buy him lunch.
Then he asked me
Tonight, as investigators revealed
my clothes, and I said underwear. He said, you can't just unzip your blouse and let me see, and I said no.
Because they said no, Nicole and Robin believe they spent the night in jail, while 2 other women who said yes spent the night with Jennings at this hotel. 19-year-old Olivia explained why she agreed to his demands.
He said, have sex with me.
Have sex?
Not would you or could you. You have to have sex with me in order to get out of jail.
After taking statements from the 3 women, we've learned internal affairs investigators have also obtained hotel registration records, security tapes, and clothing to be tested in a lab, evidence that convinced the superintendent to get Jennings off the street.
This individual he stepped over the line, and we're going to go after him. Simple as that. I'm very happy that Pam made us aware of this, so we moved on it expeditiously.
But what about others in the 18th District, like Jennings' partners and supervisors? Attorneys for the women say they should have noticed some red flags, like changes in these arrest reports. The charges were apparently reduced for the women who complied with Jennings' demands. And bond records show they were released from jail at 10 on Saturday night, while those who refused his advances weren't released until noon the next day.
The department itself had to have turned a blind eye to this. How can this happen under the very noses of watch commanders? Certainly, there's inadequate supervision of the situation.
Asked today if others were involved, the superintendent said,
I don't know, and I'm hoping not, but that's one of the things that the investigation will prove.
Jennings has refused to be interviewed on camera, but he told me in a telephone interview that the charges were not true. Meanwhile, attorneys for the women say they'll file a lawsuit tomorrow against Jennings and the department for violating the civil rights of the women they represent. David and Tracy.
More to come tomorrow?
More to come.
All right, thanks, Pam. Fresh from his vacation.
all along. The answer
That they have been able to determine
are laid off will still receive 95% of their take-home pay through.
The officer in question is stationed at the East Chicago Avenue District. One of the women bringing the suit, an exotic dancer. She claims the officer arrested her January 6th on charges of solicitation for prostitution, then offered to drop those charges in exchange for sex.
Being given the choice of either having sex with him and being let go, or not having sex with him and going to jail when it's not his call to judge.
Department officials say the officer in question has been stripped of his police powers and assigned to desk duty pending the outcome of an investigation.
Reduce or drop the charges in exchange for sex. The women say the sexual encounters took place at a motel on the north side. The 5 women say they are private dancers. They say they went to the motel a few weeks ago to dance for a man who hired them over the phone. They go on to say they were arrested by 2 police officers in that motel room, that the officers took them to a nearby police station and charged them with prostitution. They accuse Officer Eugene Jennings of demanding sex for lesser charges. 3 of the women refused his offer and were charged. The other 2 say they did have sex with Jennings. Their arrest records show the original charge crossed out and replaced with a minor violation.
If this allegation is true, then he needs to know that the Chicago Police Department is coming after him.
The other officer has not been charged tonight. Jennings has been reassigned to desk duty. A lawyer for the women plans to file suit.
Amid accusations he used his badge to get sex.
Now, the charges were made by several women arrested for prostitution, and WGN's Kim Johnson has more from the Daily Center. Hey, Kim.
Hey, Micah. Good morning, everybody. Well, the city of Chicago and the Chicago Police Department are expected to be named in a lawsuit that accuses the Chicago police officer of abusing his power. Now, one of the women who is party to that lawsuit says that someone set up a private party through an escort service, a party that was to be held January 6th at a Northside motel, where she and some other women were expected to show up and dance. And she says that's it. They weren't expected to do anything more. But she says Officer Eugene Jennings arrested her and several other women and accused them of soliciting prostitution. She says Jennings took them to the 18th District Police Station where, according to her, he requested sexual favors in exchange for agreeing to drop the charges against them. Now, several of those women are part of a lawsuit to be filed later today, one of them saying she's angry that she spent a night in jail for refusing to submit to the officer's advances.
He let it be known that he was the person in charge and that he could make it easy or hard for us. So it was hard for me because I went to jail.
No one should be put in a situation where they have to make a choice of whether or not to go free or whether or not to stay incarcerated at the whim or the wishes of a police officer. That's essentially the choice he faced. It's not right, it's not fair, it's not lawful.
Now, that officer has been demoted. He has been reassigned to desk duty while the Chicago Police Department continues to investigate this matter. The lawyer for the women says they believe that this officer was doing something that he had done many times before. Reporting live from the Daily Center, Kim Johnson, WGN News.
All right, thanks, Kim.
Well, new details are being revealed this morning about the Ryan Harris murder case. 2 young boys, aged 7 and 8, were originally arrested for the murder of the 11-year-old Inglewood girl. But days after being...
The officer is accused of charging women with prostitution, then offering to reduce or drop the charges in exchange for sex. The 5 women say they went to a Northside motel a few weeks ago to dance for a man who hired them over the phone. Once inside, they were arrested by 2 police officers, they say, who took them to a nearby police station and charged them with prostitution. The women say Officer Eugene Jennings demanded sex in exchange for lesser charges. 3 of the women refused his offer and were charged. The other 2 say they had sex with Jennings. Their arrest records show the original charge crossed out and replaced with a minor violation. Jennings has been assigned to desk duty.
There will be a special...
Do we know what that lawsuit's going to specify, damages against the city?
We do not know at this point, Jay.
Okay, lawsuit later today. Suzanne Lehman-Yo, thanks.
6:35 our time now this morning.
Tell us about the weather.
Hey, guys, we're looking for some snow and rain.
Will take over MVP's name and assets.
The initial
roadways, not only in the outlying areas, but also...
I'm Tamron Hall. It's Tuesday, January 30th. It is about 32 degrees at O'Hare. Here's the latest on what's happening at 7 a.m. A sex scandal involving an undercover Chicago police officer. 5 women are suing. They claim the officer said he'd reduce the charges against them if they had sex with him. Plus...
I have no intention of stepping down as governor.
Governor Ryan responds to a call for him to apologize for the 1994 crash that killed 6 children.
And officials say they're ready to answer Chicago's growing pains by adding another terminal at O'Hare, but the proposal will not be passed without a fight. Well, more on the morning's top stories coming up. Also, have you been sick lately? A lot of people are complaining about congestion in different...
Watery shrimp bill.
Or maybe something even worse. We'll get some free medical advice from a doctor.
In today's Fox Family and Health Report, coffee drinkers rejoice. There may be new reason why your morning cup of Joe is good for you.
I knew there would be a report finally.
Excuse.
Yeah, plus, sometime during the next 2 hours, we'll give you another secret word in our fabulous February getaway contest. We're giving away a trip to beautiful Punta Cana. It just sounds exotic.
Was that your secret getaway? Is that where you disappeared for a couple of days? Punta Cana?
No, I wish I
Some other Caribbean island? Temptation Island?
It was of sort, no.
I guess we'll find out more throughout the show.
No, we won't. And we're going to find out, though, about the weather forecast this morning. Rick DeMaio is standing by in the Fox Weather Center. Good morning.
I missed the meeting yesterday. Where is Punta Cana?
It's
Dominican
near the
Republic.
Republic.
It's in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, I should listen more often. Any trips to Montauk?
You know, I love Montauk. It's a lot of fun, but it's a little cold this time of year,
Okay,
right?
We
I
want
guess
something
you're right.
warm. It's supposed to be fabulous.
I'm just, I want to go back east. Hey, we have some icy spots out there right now, David and Tim. Let's go to the first graphic. This is what happened in the last 24 hours. A lot of heavy rain. It's washed away a lot of the road salt. We had some clear skies last night and no wind. That promoted a lot of drying. And then the icy patches form over the roadways where temperatures will be below 32, so be prepared for that. Otherwise, we expect a couple of showers in here within the next few hours, but temperatures still remaining above freezing by later on this afternoon. Let's go up to Air Fox. So Air Fox is actually grounded. Sheila White on the ground, taking care of a busy, busy Tuesday. Sheila?
Absolutely. Good morning, Rick, and everyone at home. We've had a busy morning. Lots and lots of accidents out there. Actually, too many to mention. This is the Kennedy. The inbound traffic all to your left, the headlights that you see coming in towards downtown near Hubbard's Cave. If you are traveling on the Kennedy right now, we don't have any major problem spots, but places where there are trouble spots on the Indiana Toll Road, anywhere between I-65 and the state line. So many spinouts because of slick conditions, we can't even mention them all. Also, if you are on the tri-state on the south end around I-80, we're also going to see some slick conditions. And on the inbound side of I-57, a rollover accident at 159th. All lanes are blocked with this situation, have been for quite some time. So lots of problem spots out there. Give yourselves lots of extra time and use caution this morning as you are traveling. We'll detail the travel times and delays coming up in just a bit. David and Tamron, back over to you.
Thank you, Sheila. And Bruce is joining us now. What's ahead in sports?
We got Ray Lewis live in the studio here. We have nothing.
Steel cage match with you?
We've got, taped highlights of... this time their bus did not crash with the cop car. So, things are improving for the Baltimore Ravens and the rehabilitation of Ray Lewis's image.
33. Sees clips of the game.
Terrible.
I think it was the halftime show that...
I like the halftime show. Yeah. You didn't like it?
Two worst teams in the Super Bowl, that's why.
I like Ray Charles. All right.
Ray Charles was good.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, topping our news this morning, Chicago's top cop is warning officers the department will come after them if they step over the line. Superintendent Terry Hillard made his comments in reaction to a sex scandal involving a veteran officer. Let's get the details now from our Ann Cavanaugh, who's live in the newsroom. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning, Tamron. Hillard says that the department is investigating whether other cops could also be involved in this type of alleged activity. 5 women will announce later today that they are suing the officer in question and the Chicago Police Department. They claim that the veteran officer assigned to uncover prostitution tried to blackmail them into having sex with him.
Typically, if they agreed to have sex with him, they would receive a lesser charge that would not require them to spend the night in jail.
The officer and his partner were set up working undercover at a near Northside hotel at the time. They had called several exotic dancers and escort services. 5 women responded, and the cops arrested them and took them to central booking. All 5 women claim the one officer offered to reduce their charges in exchange for sex. 2 women say they took the deal. 3 refused and spent the night in jail. None of the women have been convicted for prior sex crimes, and all insist that they're not hookers. They do know each other, though, and compared notes about what allegedly happened with the officer. They say they tried to report it to the police department, but claim they were brushed off until the story made headlines. Now the Chicago police brass are warning cops this type of behavior will not be tolerated.
We're going to come after you. Simple as that. There's no place on this police department for behavior such as that.
The women claim when the officer was trying to blackmail them into having sex with him, he threatened them with everything from a felony conviction to loss of child custody. The alleged victims range in age from 19 to 39. And once again, David, they will be holding a news conference later this morning.
All right, Ann, thank you for that report.
Was victimized by accusations made by the Willis family, which lost 6 children in a van accident in 1995.
On our Health Watch, your teenager may already be developing high blood pressure. And in our top story at 11, charges of a sex scandal in the Chicago Police Department. 3 women say they are filing suit against an officer who they claim offered them lenient treatment in return for sex. Suzanne Lemignon is now live with the latest on a story that was first broken by CBS 2 Chicago's Pam Zekman. Suzanne.
Linda, we were just finishing up here at a news conference at the Chicago Hilton and Towers, where the attorneys for the victims in this case say they're delaying the filing of a $50 million lawsuit. All this delay happening after CBS 2 Chicago's Pam Zekman's report aired, and essentially more women have come forward with the same allegations, Linda.
We've gotten phone calls of other possible victims of this officer and other officers' corruption and misconduct. At this time, we're investigating those leads.
Now the attorneys say if those findings are relevant, they're going to incorporate those findings into a lawsuit which will then be filed later today. Now, since Pam Zekman's investigation was made public, Chicago's police superintendent Terry Hillard says he's been working very hard to get to the bottom of this situation. These 3 women say after police officer Eugene Jennings arrested them for prostitution, he offered to let them off if they would have sex with him. Nicole Tate says Jennings told her he would change her police report with a few pen strokes if she would comply.
That meant that basically he could do what he wanted to do.
What does he want in this case?
He wanted sex. Basically, plain and simple.
Tate says she declined Jennings' offer, as did Robin Lance, but Olivia Robinson did not. She says she didn't think she had a choice.
You have to have sex with me in order to get out of jail.
Those allegations prompted Internal Affairs to conduct an investigation. They found changes in arrest reports, apparently reducing the charges against the women who agreed to Jennings' demands. And bond records show the women who didn't agree had to stay in jail for 14 more hours than those who went along with Jennings. Based upon the evidence, Superintendent Terry Hillard has stripped Jennings of his police powers.
This individual he stepped over the line, and we're going to go after him.
Jennings has been assigned to desk duty at the moment. Meantime, Internal Affairs is also investigating allegations that Officer Jennings did not act alone. In fact, the attorneys for the victims in this case say they plan to include another officer's name in this lawsuit. Meantime, Officer Jennings has declined to give any on-camera interview, and the 10-year veteran of the force has also denied any of these charges. Linda, back to you.
All right, Suzanne. Federal investigators now...
Time for...
Department. They are accusing a police officer of offering to drop prostitution charges against them in exchange for sex. The women say that it happened when they arrived for a pre-arranged appointment at a Northside hotel. The women who call themselves private dancers say they were arrested by 2 police officers, and then they claim they were taken to the East Chicago Avenue police station where they were charged with prostitution. They say that Officer Eugene Jennings offered lesser charges in exchange for sex. 2 women accepted the deal. Their arrest records were altered to show a minor violation. 3 women allegedly refused the offer, and they were charged.
He took our human rights away from us when he decided that we offered something better to him than just jail time. We had our womanly values that he wanted to violate, and I wasn't willing to go along with that. I want to make that clear.
The department is investigating those charges against Jennings. He has been stripped of his police powers and is currently assigned to desk duty. The women and their attorneys say that they want the second officer to be charged as well.
The
campfire may...
Some women plan to sue an undercover officer and the Chicago Police Department, claiming the officer tried to blackmail them into having sex with him.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Robin Robinson.
And I'm Marianne Murciano. A sex scandal is first on Fox this afternoon. 3 women claim a police officer threatened to arrest them for prostitution unless they agreed to have sex with him. Craig Wall joins us now from police headquarters on the South Side with the very latest. What's going on, Craig?
Marianne, the attorney for the 3 women says later this afternoon he will file a $50 million lawsuit against the Chicago Police Department as well as the city and an officer from the 18th District who was allegedly involved in a scheme to blackmail the women into sex to avoid serious criminal charges.
We feel that this lawsuit is necessary, is proper in light of the corruption, the bribery, the official misconduct of this officer and what he subjected these young ladies to.
The attorney for the 3 alleged victims says the officer, 18th District Cop Eugene Jennings, used the ruse of an escort service sting to arrange for women to meet him at the downtown Howard Johnson's Hotel on January 6th. When the women arrived, the officer arrested them, took them to the police station, and threatened them with serious penalties unless they agreed to meet him for sex at another hotel. Later that night, 3 exotic dancers arrested earlier met the officer at the Homewood Suites nearby. The lawsuit alleges the women weren't the only victims.
I did not go along with what the officer wanted. He embarrassed me, he defamed me, he degraded me, made lewd comments, sexual advances towards me that were unwanted.
Since this happened to me, I have been living in terror. And I came forth because I don't believe anyone should have to live and go through what I did. The police were supposed to be there to protect me, not to harass me.
The attorney for the women also claims that the Police Internal Affairs Division did not get involved in this case until the media did. Not so at all, says a spokesperson. In fact, he says IAD opened their file on January 8th, and within 10 days, Officer Eugene Jennings had been stripped of his police powers and reassigned to desk duty. Superintendent Terry Hillard says he will not tolerate this kind of activity. Reporting live from police headquarters at 35th of Michigan, Craig Wall, Fox News Chicago. Robin, back to you.
All right, Craig, thank you very much. The family of a cab driver lawsuit.
And in California, police say they've arrested a man who was planning. Chicago police officer of demanding sexual favors.
Was 44 years old. His family still holding out, planning to file a $50 million lawsuit.
The city of Chicago, the Chicago Police Department, and the accused officer will be named as defendants in the suit. ABC 7's Charles Thomas in the newsroom with more. Charles?
Well, Joel, the attorneys had scheduled filing the lawsuit this morning, but delayed their trip to the clerk's office because they say other women have called to complain of similar treatment by Chicago police. Today, we heard firsthand accounts by alleged victims in the latest scandal to rock the department.
I have never been so afraid or frightened in my life.
Robin Lance and 2 other self-described private dancers were joined by their attorneys as the women described what happened inside the 18th District Police Station the night of January 6th.
And with all the policemen in that station making all the little comments, you had no one to turn to.
In all, 5 women were arrested at a nearby motel by Tactical Officer Eugene Jennings and his partner and charged with solicitation for prostitution. The women alleged that while in custody, Jennings offered to reduce the charge in exchange for sex.
He embarrassed me, he defamed me, he degraded me, made lewd comments, sexual advances towards me that were unwanted.
3 of the 5 women, including Lance and Tate, say they refused the deal and spent the night in jail. But 19-year-old Olivia Robinson and another unidentified woman say they were released on a lesser charge after they agreed to meet Jennings for sex at another downtown hotel.
He intimidated her, and ultimately she acquiesced to his wishes.
Yesterday, Superintendent Terry Hillard confirmed Jennings had been reassigned to desk duties during an internal investigation. Mayor Daley is also aware of the allegation and the impending lawsuit.
Everybody sues the city. I don't care what happens. Everybody sues the city. You know, they think we have a well of money.
Meanwhile, the women's attorneys want the city to expand its investigation to review the actions of other 18th District cops who were inside the station the night of January 6th.
There had to be a watch commander present. There had to be other officers present. Someone should have known or seen what this officer was doing to these young ladies.
Attorney Gaston and his clients have criticized police administrators for not acting against Jennings' partner. While the women say the partner did not threaten or have sex with any of them, they allege he was aware of Jennings' plan and should have alerted supervisors at the police station. Live in the newsroom, Charles Thomas, ABC 7 News. Joel, back to you.
Thank you, Charles. We have some break.
Police are warning women about a series of sexual attacks in 2 of Chicago's North Side neighborhoods. And will it be a deal or will it fold? The Illinois Gaming Board decides the fate of a proposed casino in Rosemont.
This is the 5 o'clock news.
Getting sex from them in exchange for their freedom. The filing's been delayed because other women are now coming forward, their attorneys say, with similar allegations. Pam Zeckman broke this story on Sunday. She's here with the latest developments. A news conference held today as well. Pam?
David and Tracy, the attorneys say they are now interviewing several women who have called saying they were victims of misconduct. And if valid, their complaints will be included in the lawsuit. They also say other officers are to blame for what happened after the 3 women we originally reported on were arrested for soliciting for prostitution. The 3 women held a press conference today outlining their allegations about sexual demands made by Officer Eugene Jennings and blaming other officers who failed to protect them.
To be propositioned like that, and with all the policemen in that station making all the little comments, I have never been so afraid or frightened in my life.
They say others in the 18th District will also be sued because they overheard Jennings talk about his plans and failed to report it.
Officer Eugene Jennings told his partner that he was going to have fun with these girls tonight. He was going to selectively choose which ones he wanted to have sex with, essentially, and asked him did he want to take part in it.
He said that he did not want any part of it. He was going on another job, but he was a police officer. Even if he did not want a part of what was happening to us, he had an obligation to help us.
As we disclosed, Robin and another woman, Nicole Tate, spent the night in jail after they rebuffed Jennings' alleged demands. But 19-year-old Olivia gave in after Jennings threatened her with a night in the county jail.
She felt the whole night that she was not free to leave until he was sexually satisfied. Nobody should ever be put in that situation. She has to sexually satisfy this man in order to be free from this man.
Jennings has been taken off the street pending the conclusion of the police department's investigation. And today, the mayor said he expects more action will be taken against the 10-year veteran with the department.
I don't care if he's a 1-year veteran or 50-year veteran. It doesn't matter. It's wrong. And so he'll be dealt with very seriously in the investigation.
An investigation jump-started after our inquiries, according to the women's attorney.
It wasn't until one of the reporters, Pam Zeckman, got on the case that the department became responsive to the pleas of these ladies.
Officer Jennings has declined to comment on camera, but says the charges are not true. The other officer, his partner for that night, has not returned my phone calls. Tracy and David.
Thanks, Pam. A warning.
Demanded sex in return for dropping charges against several women. Now the police department is bracing for a lawsuit. NBC 5's Anita Padilla live now in the newsroom with details. Anita?
Marianne, apparently more women are coming forward with similar accusations against this officer, and so plans for filing the $50 million lawsuit have been put on hold. But so far, 4 women say the officer intimidated them into an evening of sex in exchange for reducing the charges against them.
I have never been so afraid or frightened in my life. And I hope this never, ever happens to another woman here in Chicago.
Robin Lance says she was forced by a Chicago cop to trade sex for freedom. She's among 4 women who today say their civil rights were violated by Officer Eugene Jennings of the 18th District.
He made it crystal clear to these ladies that if they did not cooperate, they faced stiff punishment.
It all started when the exotic dancers say they were booked for a private show at this downtown hotel. Waiting for them was a plainclothes officer who allegedly wanted sex instead of a dance. When they refused, they say he arrested them. The women say Officer Jennings put them in an interview room, and it was there, they say, that he threatened them with felony charges unless they agreed to have sex with him.
He embarrassed me, he defamed me, he degraded me, made lewd comments.
Nicole Tate says she spent the night in jail when she refused to have sex with Jennings. 2 other alleged victims say they met him later that evening. The 3 reportedly went to another downtown hotel and engaged in sex for several hours. The officer involved is now on desk duty and stripped of his arrest powers. Today, Mayor Daley says if the allegations are true, then Jennings should be held accountable.
Again, you have to be vigilant at all times dealing with issues, whether in the police department or any other federal, state, or local agency.
And police are investigating this with their Internal Affairs Division. Now, this lawsuit is expected to name a second officer who the women say was aware of what Officer Jennings was doing that night. They say he had a moral obligation to report misconduct to his own superiors. Reporting live in the newsroom, Anita Padilla, NBC 5 News.
Okay, Anita, thank you.
Against the officer, the city of Chicago, and the police department. Today, 3 of those women came forward to tell their stories. ABC 7's Charles Thomas joins us from the newsroom with more. Charles?
Well, Linda, the women in this case initially became involved as the result of an ad for private dancers in a sexually oriented magazine. They alleged that Chicago police officers set them up and that one cop used his badge to extort sexual favors.
I want everyone to know that just because you are a dancer does not make you a prostitute. You don't have to be ashamed of what you're doing because an officer has used his power of position to put you in an unwanted position.
Nicole Tate, Robin Lance, and Olivia Robinson say they don't want what happened to them to happen to anyone else. They say they were among 5 women wrongfully arrested for prostitution January 6th at this Northside motel, where they allegedly had been called to dance by on-duty Chicago policeman Eugene Jennings and his partner in an apparent sting operation. At district headquarters a half-block away, the women claim Jennings offered to reduce the charges in exchange for sex.
The police were supposed to be there to protect me, not to harass me, offer advances towards me, and put me in a position where I had no choice.
3 of the 5 arrestees, including Lance and Tate, refused the deal and spent the night in jail. But the 19-year-old Robinson says she and another woman were released on a lesser charge after they agreed to meet Jennings for sex at another downtown hotel.
She has to sexually satisfy this man in order to be free from this man. And once he was satisfied at approximately 6 in the morning and fell off to sleep, she made her exit.
Mayor Daley said the city would not tolerate any officer trading his badge for sex.
It's wrong, and so he'll be dealt with very seriously in the investigation.
The women want the investigation expanded to include others at 18th District headquarters, including Jennings' partner, who they say should be disciplined.
Even if he did not want a part of what was happening to us, he had an obligation to help us. He could have told a captain, a lieutenant, someone.
The lawsuit on behalf of the women involved in that January 6th incident was scheduled to be filed this morning. However, that filing was delayed because their attorneys say other women have called to complain of similar incidents involving Chicago police officers. Live in the newsroom, Charles Thomas, ABC 7 News. Alan, back to you.
Okay, Charles, thanks. Up next here, after losing a high-profile race.
Charges against them. Reducing charges against them. The officer in question is Eugene Jennings of the 18th District. Robin Lance says that she was intimidated into having sex with Jennings. She is one of several women planning to file suit against the department, claiming their civil rights were violated.
I have never been so afraid or frightened in my life. And I hope this never, ever happens to another woman here in Chicago.
The women's attorney postponed today's scheduled filing of the $50 million suit because they say more alleged victims are coming forward. Officer Jennings has been signed to desk duty and stripped of his police powers pending the outcome of this investigation.
There is an effort underway in the state legislature to pass what's being called Scott's Law.
Rano is being kicked out of the police academy. More women are coming forward in that police sex scandal that we've been reporting on now for 2 days, involving a Chicago policeman who allegedly blackmailed women into having sex with him to avoid prostitution charges. The attorney for the woman is poised, he says, to file a $50 million civil suit against the city, the department, and the accused officer personally, as our Craig Wall reports.
3 women say they are victims of the officer's alleged misconduct. Their attorney says other women hearing about the case are coming forward, but he wants to check out their stories first before filing the lawsuit against the accused cop.
We certainly surmise and suspect that he had done this before, that he had victimized other women before.
These women, and at least one other so far, claim the tactical officer from the 18th District contacted them through ads for escorts and arranged for a meeting at the downtown Howard Johnson Hotel January 6th. When the women arrived, the officer arrested them on prostitution charges. Back at the station, he allegedly blackmailed 3 of them into having sex with him to avoid serious penalties. That rendezvous took place at the nearby Homewood Suites Hotel later that night. 2 women went to jail, they say, rather than go along with the officer's alleged demands.
I have never been so afraid or frightened in my life. And I hope this never, ever happens to another woman here in Chicago.
I did not go along with what the officer wanted. He embarrassed me, he defamed me, he degraded me, made lewd comments, sexual advances towards me that were unwanted.
Police brass have since stripped the officer of his police powers and reassigned him to desk duty pending the investigation. The attorney for the women says the officer's action in this case not only warrants a civil suit, but criminal charges as well. But the state's attorney's office refused to comment about any pending investigation. The women's $50 million lawsuit is expected to be filed as soon as tomorrow. Craig Wall, Fox News, Chicago.
Chicago police have found nearly $400,000 worth of illegal drugs on the north side.
Read him, Ben.
See you back here Friday night.
Later on the Tonight Show, Jay welcomes from the Gina Davis Show. At Mike Adamley Sport.
Danger on the job tonight. A street collapses, trapping a woman.
A neighborhood in fear tonight.
All with 0.9%.
But first, after months
in serious condition. Reporting live from Illinois Masonic, Cheryl Burton, ABC 7 News. Diane, back to you.
Cheryl, thank you. Well, people who live on the north side of Chicago are
7 and 8.
Not only had Emerald Casino owner
To do, so you've got to be out.
Now, because investigation, the new complaints delay the filing of a $50 million lawsuit against the department today. The suit comes after Pam Zekman broke the story of 3 women who say the officer abused his powers to get sex. And Pam joins us now with the latest on the investigation. Pam?
David and Tracy, in explaining their planned lawsuit against the city, the women and their attorneys disclosed some reasons why they believe other officers are also to blame for what happened, and why they believe other women have also been victimized.
I have never been so afraid or frightened in my life.
Afraid inside the 18th District after she says she...
This conference tomorrow afternoon, they hope to announce a new redoubled...
Her and other women he charged with soliciting for prostitution.
Officer Eugene Jennings told his partner that he was going to have fun with these girls tonight. He was going to selectively choose which ones he wanted to have sex with, essentially, and asked him did he want to take part in it.
He said that he did not want any part of it, but he was a police officer. He had an obligation to help us.
The women believe what happened to them has happened before, based on other comments Jennings made at this motel
here
in the undercover vice sting.
Jennings stated that if I had my regular partner, we would have had a party. You never would have been brought back to the station.
These 2 women spent the night in jail after they say they rebuffed
he planned.
But as we previously disclosed, Olivia Robinson says she spent the night in a motel with the officer.
She felt the whole night that she was not free to leave until he was sexually satisfied.
Now they all plan to sue, even though Jennings has already been taken off the street.
It wasn't until one of the reporters, Pam Zekman, got on the case that the department became responsive to the pleas of these ladies. And I think that's certainly reprehensible.
Today, the mayor predicted more action will be taken in response to the allegations.
That's wrong, and so he'll be dealt with very seriously in the investigation.
Officer Jennings says the charges are not true, but has refused our repeated requests for an interview. His partner, the night of the incident, did not return my phone call. And Tracy and David, we have some developments in another investigation. I'll be back in a few minutes with that.
All right, thanks, Pam. And another woman did have sex with Jennings at another hotel and were released on a lesser charge. Attorneys for the women now say others have called to complain same way by Chicago police officers.
The charges focus on Officer Eugene Jennings of the 18th Police District. The women allege they were arrested by Jennings, who then pressured them for sex in exchange for having the charges lessened or dropped. At least 2 women claim they were forced to have sex with Jennings at a downtown hotel in exchange for their freedom.
I have never been so afraid or frightened in my life. And I hope this never, ever happens to another woman here in Chicago.
The women's attorney today postponed filing a civil rights lawsuit against the department because of the new accusations. Jennings has been stripped of his police powers and assigned to desk duty pending the outcome of a departmental investigation.
A federal jury
its gambling barge in Rosemont until it was warned last year to stop. Now, the state's gaming board says one of the companies that worked on the project is controlled by known members of the Chicago outfit. And that's not all.
Staff has evidence that 2 of the proposed shareholders of Emerald Casino have close associations with Chicago organized crime figures.
While the gaming board isn't naming names, its administrator does say that Emerald's 2 principal owners, Donald and Kevin Flynn, made false and
cheating the taxpayers when they should have been working. 9 employees were suspended or fired. Pam's back now to tell us there could be more. Hard to believe.
Yes, there could. Tracy and David, we've learned the city inspector general has completed his investigation of the clerk's office. And while there's no official comment, the report is leaking out. Some of those people we caught playing golf with city clerk Jim Lasky at home or shooting pool when they should have been at work have already been suspended or forced to resign, including Ray Drish, Lasky's chief of staff, accused of covering up for the unauthorized absence of another employee. Now we've learned the inspector general is recommending that the clerk fire 3 more employees and suspend 4 others. He also wants to demote a streets and sand supervisor, the 23rd Ward superintendent, who allowed garbage to be picked up illegally from the private banquet hall owned by Ray Drish. And at one of Lasky's golf outings, the Inspector General reportedly discovered a surprise in the foursome, an AWOL Water Department official that the IG also wants suspended. Spokesman for the clerk, the water commissioner, and Streets and Sand said they had no comment until they review the Inspector General's report. I'll keep you posted. Tracy and David.
All right, thank you, Pam.
Thanks, ma'am. A German-made candy sold here in Chicago.
A group of women who say they are dancers claim Officer Eugene Jennings of the Chicago Avenue Police District tried to force them to have sex with him. They say Jennings met them at a near North Side motel, then said he would drop prostitution charges against them in exchange for sex. Mayor Daley says the police department must always be on the lookout for officers who abuse their power.
We have to be vigilant at all times dealing with issues, whether in the police department or any other federal, state, or local agency, especially it deals with vice. You know, the types of, whether it's prostitution or gambling or narcotics, there's a never-ending era of corruption with it, individual corruption. So you always have to be vigilant upon that.
The women say they plan to sue the city, Officer Jennings, and the police department over the accusations.
A warning tonight for women on Chicago's North Side. Police say a man is attacking women, and his attacks are getting more brutal. Trial of...
John, the latest sex scandal to rock the Chicago Police Department may see more women bring charges now that the matter is public. 5 women say a Chicago police officer tried to force them to have sex. They are filing a $50 million lawsuit. Tonight, indications that even more women may come forward. Nicole Tate, Robin Lance, and Olivia Robinson are 3 of the women. They say they are private dancers and accuse one police officer of wrongful arrest for prostitution. They say they were called to a motel on the near North Side of Chicago by police officer Eugene Jennings and his partner, and then accused of soliciting sex. They say Jennings took them to the 18th District Police Station nearby and offered to drop the charges in exchange for sex.
Lance, Tate, and another woman say they refused and spent a night in jail.
The police were supposed to be there to protect me, not to harass me, offer advances towards me, and put me in a position where I had no choice.
Robinson says she and another woman did have sex with Jennings at another hotel and were released on a lesser charge. Attorneys for the women now say others have called to complain that they were treated the same way by Chicago police officers.
Well, Diane, concerns about
Vigilant upon that.
The women claim Officer Eugene Jennings met them for what they considered a private dance at a Northside motel and then arrested them for prostitution and demanded sex in return for dropping the charges.
708, even everything. Just whistling. That's... Take extra precautions in the wake of 4 recent attacks. Women have been grabbed and assaulted in Lincoln Park and Old Town. Police believe the same man is responsible for those violent assaults.
And jury deliberations resumed today in the trial of a teen charged with killing Chicago police officer Michael Sirielli. Yesterday, they considered the case for about 4 hours before calling it a night. The state's case was shaken by 4 witnesses who recanted, saying their testimony was coerced.
The White House says it will continue to maintain a hard line against Libya in light of this morning's Lockerbie verdict in the Pan Am Flight 103 bombing. A Libyan intelligence officer was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years. His co-defendant was acquitted. 270 people were killed when the jumbo jet exploded in the sky over Lockerbie, Scotland back in December 1988.
Now here are some other stories we're following for you this morning. A Chicago police recruit has been snagged by an internet sex sting. 25-year-old Johnny Moreno was arrested yesterday in Des Plaines. He allegedly made arrangements over the internet to meet a 15-year-old girl for sex, but the girl was an undercover police officer. Moreno faces felony solicitation charges. He's also being kicked out of the police academy. And the city could get hit with a $50 million lawsuit as early as today over charges of police misconduct. 5 women have accused a police officer of demanding they have sex with him to avoid prostitution charges. The women, all exotic dancers, were arrested during a prostitution sting at a downtown hotel. Back at the police station, he allegedly threatened them with jail time if they didn't have sex with him.
I have never been so afraid or frightened in my life.
I did not go along with what the officer wanted. He embarrassed me, he defamed me, he degraded me, made lewd comments, sexual advances towards me that were unwanted.
A police spokesman said the department is taking the allegations very seriously. The officer has been placed on desk duty while the investigation continues.
A 19-year-old student is charged with planning a Columbine-style attack.
The robbery here at the White Hen Pantry Store. This is the 1300 block of West Fulton. Police won't say if the 2 robberies are related. The investigation there continuing. Before you walk out the door, we've got the latest travel times. Here's Don.
Yeah, we've got some big delays in the tri-state, Arthur, all because of an accident at Ogden. Still out there, Mike Lorber?
Just cleared about 2-3 minutes ago, but big delays from the 83rd toll all the way up to about the Hinsdale Oasis and slow on this 290 ramp, Don.
Thank you, sir. Northbound on 355. We've got this crash now on the side of the 290. The backup there starts at the Army Trail Road area in Wheeling. Accident at Milwaukee and Hints. The highest travel time, probably the inbound Kennedy. It's 50 minutes in from O'Hare. The Ryan's awfully busy this morning as well. 40 in from 95th. Art.
All right, thank you. Byron's going to help you plan your day right now.
Arthur, looking at the temperatures, 32 up north in Waukegan, 36 at Gary, 34 at Midway, 33 at DePage, in the 30s with a wind chill, in the 20s. Really no big wind chill. 36 for a high today. 29 to 30 is your typical high for this date. It will be 26 tomorrow. Slight chance of a few flakes tomorrow. 27 on Friday, 38, maybe 40 by Saturday. Art, back to you.
All right, thank you very much. That's the latest from the NBC5 newsroom. More local news at 8:25. Have a nice day.
I don't know how somebody in their right mind could do something like that.
Now, there is still no indication as to why this woman may have allegedly kidnapped her own niece. Again, police say she does have a history of mental illness, and so far they have not been able to locate her. Live on the north side, Kevin Roy, ABC 7 News. Lee and Jose.
The good thing, the little girl is okay.
Yes, it is.
Thanks very much, Kevin. On to other news this morning. 2 Chicago police officers are under arrest this morning. Authorities confirmed the arrest, but will not release any other details. However, according to the Chicago Tribune, the 2 officers were taken into custody yesterday in a federal sting operation. And the Tribune reports the officers allegedly stole drugs, money, and guns. Both were arrested at a Southside housing project. And later today, lawyers plan to file a lawsuit against 2 Chicago police officers, the department and the city. In this suit, it claims that one officer in particular offered to reduce charges in exchange for sex, while the other officer looked away. The women and their attorneys announced a lawsuit earlier this week. They say Officer Eugene Jennings offered to drop prostitution charges against them for sex. The women were arrested after being called to a Chicago hotel to dance. 3 women say they refused the officers and spent the night in the jail. 2 other women say they did have sex with Jennings and were released on a lesser charge. The police department is investigating.
Police are looking for a suspect.
Has sex with women in exchange for reducing criminal charges. Attorneys for 4 women filed the suit at the Daily Center today. 2 officers were also named in the suit. It charges that one officer arrested several women and charged them with prostitution, then offered to reduce the charges in exchange for sex. They say the second officer looked the other way. The women are demanding at least $50 million damages.
The voting problems of the November...
Fox News in the Morning is brought to you by iShares Index Stocks.
We can talk about that later.
Large caps have capped. And if large caps have capped, that must mean market momentum is moving towards mid caps. Except the major movers are mixed on mid caps and more inclined to maneuver to micro caps. Micro caps.
As small a cap as a cap can get, if a small cap can get small.
Now go make us some money.
Prepare your portfolio for anything. Ask your advisor about building a financial plan with iShares Index Stocks.
Chicago Bears fans know their 4 seasons.